Chirohustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Life Chiropractic College West, and M-Sculpt. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 483 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your producer, Luke Marinette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Patrick Flynn. And if you want to hear about how we focus on clinical outcomes at the Wellness Way, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. It's 483 today, and I have Dr. Patrick Flynn joining me. He's with the Wellness Way. If you guys can't see it, look over his shoulder. It's right there. And if you're not watching this on video, it will be tagged to this episode, the Wellness Way. But before we jump into this episode, let you guys know the big why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? Freedom of speech is important to us. So we protect that with the show, specifically with chiropractic. We also believe in family freedom and medical freedom. And we protect the sacred trust. If you don't know what that is, go and do a search on your favorite search engine and look for BJ Palmer's sacred trust and his last words. Then we do believe in subluxation-based chiropractic, innate intelligence, and universal intelligence, and that when man or woman, the physical, get adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. With that being said, Dr. Patrick Flynn, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate being on today.
Yeah. So we actually had an attempt at this a few months back, and here's second iteration.
Yeah, like I said, second time's always a good charm, so we'll have some fun.
So let's just jump right into this one. Tell your story. I'm intrigued by your story just because I dealt with some of the similar instances of having challenges growing up and what's going on with that kid. I struggle with dyslexia. So there was a huge problem with me in developmental, people thought I was stupid.
Yeah, that's why we get along so well. Is I was even diagnosed as a juvenile delinquent. I was an F&D student. And to give a synopsis just of some stages of life, when I was young, I was sick and diagnosed with psychiatric issues through my teenage years. And then I found a chiropractor, and that allowed me to view things differently just because of the thinking. And then what happened is then I went to chiropractic school. When I went to my undergrad, I got my degrees there, and then went to chiropractic school. And then during chiropractic school, I, met my beautiful wife, who was very sick. I didn't know at the time, but very sick. And within a couple of weeks of dating her, she said she couldn't have children. And then therefore, she gave me an opportunity to say, listen, we can break up if you want to have a family, because I wouldn't want to stop you. And because everything I learned about thinking of chiropractic, not the practice, because that's what we're going to get into today. The thinking, I knew that I disagreed with that. I disagreed with everything that they were telling her. Well, fast forward today, we have 4 beautiful girls. I figured out some things in female hormones that allowed me to, share it with the profession of all professions. But the one thing that people do not realize, they sometimes get my practices, because we have them all over the world, confused because they think it's functional medicine, which I'll tell you is wrong, integrative, which is wrong, medical, which is wrong. Because what separates chiropractic even today is actually, and most chiropractors don't practice this way, it's really their thinking that really leads them to be successful. And then if you have the clinical model, then you can get the clinical results. And go back to BJ Palmer, that's what made him popular. Wasn't the fact that he was a great marketer, it was that he got clinical results where no one else did.
I think it's really cool that you bring up BJ, because I think BJ Palmer had a lot to do with spreading this profession globally and getting it everywhere. And it sounds like that's something similar you're doing with the Wellness Way. And it's a clinical approach that you mentioned. So tell us a little bit more about why you started the Wellness Way.
Well, everything comes from a demand and a need. I looked at what was currently out there in the clinical model, and it didn't exist. It didn't. So I said, listen, I'm going to start from scratch. I was a very poor kid growing up, and I was poor when I got out of school, even more with student loans and everything. And So I said, I opened my first practice in December 1999, December 27th, 1999. And no joke, on $500, I had nothing. I took x-rays at another person's office and I held them up to a window and I taped them up the window during the day so I could see them. At nighttime was a little bit more difficult, so I tried to hold them up to a light. That's how poor I was when I started. I didn't have a front desk. I put a card table out there. Later on, I grew extremely quickly because my clinical outcomes followed. And what it did, it was like, okay. And then the next thing you know, I started to practice it within a very short time because I got very busy very quickly. Other doctors started to catch notice. And to the point where even other professional doctors started to get notice from all healthcare realms. And next thing you know, I started to just share the concepts with everybody that way. And we created a great clinical model that's now used by, thousands of doctors. And we have practices all over, and it's been great because it's allowed me to speak on every stage, from chiropractic stage to medical stage to even churches and stuff. That because if you actually truly understand the chiropractic thinking, it answers so many questions in not only a healthcare realm but even a personal realm.
Yeah, that's everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. I guess my next idea that I had was I was thinking about you talking about like the clinical excellence of all the
Yep.
offices that you started. What is it like for you when you see somebody come up in your system and thrive within the wellness way? Like you see, like, I don't know how many practitioners you've placed into a clinic, but what's that feel like when you see somebody like actually like do their thing that they've been wanting to do their whole life?
Yeah, it's rewarding, but what's even more rewarding is the people that they take care of, because chiropractic in its history has always had to pick up the pieces where medical has failed people, and especially the last 3 years, which we all predicted what was going to happen. You can go back to my videos when I wasn't censored. I got kicked off YouTube, Facebook, all the things. But go back to my original videos on my website, and you can see that. Listen, the public creates the demand. There's more sick people ever in history. There's more people that need our message ever in history. So I'm very excited when I see a doctor. Now, let me explain. Most doctors, the majority of them, even in the medical field, want to go to help people. They just get pulled up into a system, including chiropractors, that I kind of giggle at chiropractic schools a little bit, because being a student is not like being in the real world. And you got a safety blanket of school and student loans and doing things. Yeah, you accumulate debt. But the idea is this: you still have a safety blanket. And I always hear students say, I'm going to go out and change the world. Well, 99% of them go out and let the world change them. And under the premises, I got to make money. I gotta feed my family and all that bullshit. Because then what happens is, I think I fed my family better than any chiropractor in history and stuff, because I just said, hey, listen, when you stand on principle, when you stand on things that are right, and you don't back down, people are going to be attracted to that. So having train a doctor, practitioner to become the best clinician they are, seeing them fulfill the dreams that they want to live is fantastic. But I'm actually more excited for the people that they take care of, because it changed their life.
I love so much of what you said there. I've been doing this show 5.5 years, and got a chance to see you at a couple events over the past year or so. And I know that you do a really good job of presenting to the groups too, and getting people the information that they need. But I'm really curious, before we jump more into marketing and brand and stuff like that. How did you rebound after the censorships, man? Because I think that that's a huge concern for a lot of people out there. That's why our show does what we do, and I have my opener the way that I do, because if people don't listen to the show at all, if they listen to those first minute of me just like rambling on about why Chiro Hustle does what we do, like, it's freedom of speech, man. And when you start censoring people, you start messing with their persona, their livelihood. It's like burning books.
Yeah, I never worried about getting censored, because here's what happens: is before media existed, I built the majority of this company just on referral. So therefore, I didn't get into media till about 6 years ago. I never had a Facebook account, never had stuff, never had this, because once again, so it didn't really bother me, because I was like, a good message can't be stopped. And if you think of it this way, and then people don't realize, when you start censoring things, you actually create more of a revolution and rebound against the people that are censoring you. And it can sometimes work against them. So I didn't get into the whole worry, oh my goodness, it took my livelihood away or something like that, because it didn't. Actually, I grew even bigger. So it didn't really bother me, because I built my company. I built what I've done on the original Facebook. One face talking to another face.
I love that. So how did you go about like scraping it all down and building back up then? Because that's something I'm curious about too.
Just one day they let me back on, and then people found us. That's it. That's it. I don't know why they let us back on. Next thing you know, my team checked some stuff, and I could get back on Facebook. I get back on YouTube and stuff, and so we just started our channel and took off like crazy. And like I said, it just wasn't a big thing for me. Still isn't. When I first started, the biggest medias were phone book was number one, TV and radio, which were untouchable when you could only start your practice on $500 I had to borrow. And so I went where all the people were, and I went to the mall and I grabbed my spine. I walked around because I couldn't afford to even have a booth there or anything like that. And it just gave me realizing that once again, when you have a good message, you're willing to do what it takes. And I did everything to get good exposure. So I went where the people were.
You were hungry, man. That's a good story. Like if every chiropractor out there listened to this interview and they just took one thing away from it, and they would get themselves a card table and set up their front office and they'd go out the spine and they'd walk around the mall talking to people.
Yeah. Yeah. I just knew, and I trained on my craft. I learned to communicate. I learned to share my message. And that's why I love analogy so much. That's why when I speak, people really can connect to it. But I also learn to speak to the public directly, because remember, when you're dealing with a sick individual, you can empathize with them, as I empathize with my wife, who was told she can never have children. So I know what that is like. Did I ever believe it? Nope. And I never believed it once. And of course, then got rid of her endometriosis, or ulcerative colitis, her cystic acne, or cluster headaches. And guess what happens? Now she pops out kids like Skittles.
I also love earlier you said, will you change the world or will you let the world change you?
Yeah. And it's very easy to speak big when you've done nothing. And that's most students and doctors and things like that. That's why sometimes it's kind of brutal. A student say something to me, and I'll literally look at him and say, "Shut up! You have no idea what the world's like." It's like a college student trying to tell us what to do with business. You know, Sam, and I mean that from the standpoint. I know there's a big political debate, stuff like this. That's why I kind of giggle when people say, like, you'll have Democrats say, pay your fair share, and you always use catchphrases that other young students use, and I kind of laugh a little bit, going, you're clueless to the world the way it is.
Yeah, there's a huge demand for experience.
Yep.
And there's an old saying that those that do not do teach or coach. And I think that's something that's really cool about chiropractic that I learned is a lot of practitioners, they do both. They learn a system, they teach others. Like chiropractors love to sell other stuff to other chiropractors. I've noticed that, but it's not a bad thing. They figure it out, they crack the code, and then they're just like, hey guys, I figured this stuff out. Let's go do it this way.
But I'm going to speak about that because I was training my team today about that a little bit. I can honestly tell you, in the chiropractic world, I'm very disgusted with the profession, because all you do is see work less, make more, do everything automated, don't have to be there, and all this bullshit about money. And I'm sorry, and I'll say this, and some people be turned off this, I'm probably the richest chiropractic, not only right now, but probably in history and stuff for what I do. And here's what happens. And I never try to build a business. My thing is all about clinical outcomes, and the public will make you wealthier than you can ever imagine because they'll be running for your service. So I'm disgusted. You ever look at chiropractic advertising? If the public saw that, they would puke. And so I think chiropractors and their management groups and all stuff like that are absolutely disgusting. I've never seen one ever focus on clinical outcomes. It's all do these things, make more money, add this piece of equipment, make more money, do these things that way. And it's actually disgusts me. So that's why people wonder why the chiropractic doesn't advance. Because of those things like that, instead of actually getting down to what people really need. You know, Sam, not trying. That's why the chiropractic profession, goes by the wayside, because they're not taken seriously, because it's not even trained to clinical excellence. And so therefore we're sat to create all these gimmicks to survive in practice.
Well, don't you think they put a lot of emphasis on education and a huge,
No.
But
they're dumber than ever.
But like they put so much emphasis on education, but they don't put any emphasis. What I'm trying to say is they don't put any emphasis on success.
No,
And then,
because here's what happens. Because if you look at these people and say, look, I went from collecting this to this, and all I did was add these automated things and this piece of equipment. I'm like, no, because if your success is based on money, there's a much easier ways to make a lot more money with a lot less student debt than this. So no, I think that the chiropractic profession schools have failed. And they're wrong. The chiropractic schools are calling me right now, begging me to come teach and do things that way because the profession's failing. They've been doing this bull crap for 30 years, and that's why we are in the state we're at. And during COVID, they got hit hard. Chiropractic schools are dying. They're becoming less enrolled. They have to change their schools into universities or health sciences because and the only reason why Palmer survives is still living on its name. That's it.
you've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Life Chiropractic College West, and M-Sculpt. Let's hustle. Yeah, the truth is that I believe you in a lot of this.
Yep.
And I think that the records being like disclosed is that people need to be wise on this, and they need the profession needs to hear this. So let's go back to outcomes, because I know it's something you love. How do you set things up within your clinic model to get an outcome that you're proud of, or that the person gets results from?
Well, it's all based on the chiropractic philosophy. It always has been, always will be. People think that when you look at chiropractic, it's so focused on an art that we've been pigeonholed into a clinical model that leaves us in a pain model. I've yet to see a practice, even people that call themselves healthcare or wellness practice and things like that I walk in their office, and if I pull their files, the patients are still taking a ton of medications, still sick as can be. You're the secondary pain doctor, even though you're saying that you're doing these things. And that's where I'm sitting there going, our chiropractic philosophy, not our art, actually helps set you up to set the clinical model. And your art is one part of it that way. But I still go back to a book I got when I was a teenager that Dee Dee wrote when it talked about trauma, toxins, and autosuggestion. And coming back to, obviously, BJ and Stevenson changed it to call it the 3 T's. And a lot of people, what they do is, and that's why I said this before, the concept of subluxation based isn't based on chiropractic philosophy or history. It's not at all. It's actually the term subluxation based will lead the chiropractic in the wrong direction, because you really think that the #1 stressor to everybody is subluxation, then you have not looked at people clinically. And because guess what? What's throwing off female hormones is not subluxation. Can it? Yeah. Does it? Yes. But I'll diagnostically show that mental stress will dominate over their subluxated or not. And you can be unsubluxated and have horrible hormones. And if everything is subluxation based, I'll tell you right now, if you look at what's happened over the last 50 years, maybe 50, 70 years ago, when we were more physically active and more physical when it came to physical trauma, working, that's why we don't see the miracles we see just from adjusting we did 50, 100 years ago. And it doesn't even fall within the chiropractic clinical model where our philosophy is based on. That's why I kind of laugh when people say, hey, I got adjusted, my nervous system's clear. Really? You're drinking a soda. You know what I'm saying? That's more toxic than your subluxation was. So therefore, there's other factors. Now, it doesn't want to downgrade how amazing getting adjusted is. I'll get adjusted later today. I love my spinal correction. I'm a Gonsid guy with some CVP mixed into there as far as some of the correction stuff. It's a big part of every office we have, but that's not what chiropractic is fully based on. It's based on the thinking. And we're not teaching it from a clinical standpoint. We teach it like a history thing. And then get into your manipulative therapies where they become nothing more than pain doctors. And you're either going to be something at a cheap adjustment, or you're going to have to overpromise your adjustment, which most consulting companies do. They teach these guys to overpromise their adjustment and say this nerve goes to this bone and blah, 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 blah. And it's why we do look like we have no credibility in the public.
Interesting. So let's talk more about the profession, because I think we're on a good roll here.
Yeah.
Let's look down the line. Future pace us. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Where are we going?
It depends. I know where I'm going. Uh, I see the chiropractic schools continue to die and stuff. I look at this as the greatest opportunity for chiropractic in history. Not the current form of it, because that's why you've seen when I started in Wisconsin, there was double the licenses from when I started, because insurance moved out. It happened in Illinois when Blue Cross Blue Shield stopped giving everybody $2,000 per person, because they just run the insurance up like crazy. And when they went to pre-qualify, chiropractors went out of business like crazy. It's a great opportunity, because here's what happens. If you're really doing great clinical work, what's chiropractic philosophy taught all of us, it's still sitting in these little books called green books that list out everything. Now, what people said I've done is I've modernized it and brought chiropractic into the future. So that's why it's kind of funny. Every year, even this past year was a banner year. We have more doctors, more offices, more clinical results, more healthcare conditions being reversed ever in history. And once again, going back to what the clinical model does for outcomes and then growth of your clinic, I can tell you right now, I have 50 offices right now looking for 1 or 2 extra docs right now because of the amount of business that way. And we don't do insurance. It's in God we trust, the rest pay cash. So, and we're not cheap.
There's so much about this interview I love.
Yeah. So
there's so much.
And I just kept on, and I never tried to develop a consulting company or management as chiropractors try to sell and overpromise or stuff that doesn't work and add other equipment in. Because you know what is this? It's really simple. Go back to the 3 T's. When you go back to the 3 T's and realize that those things devastate people's lives, you just need to have a good clinical model, helps you do that, a way of explaining it that way. And then guess what happens? You're working with the greatest power that created the human body, and that's innate intelligence. That's why I can walk around with such great confidence. I don't care what you've been through with your neurosurgeons, with your OB, with your endocrinologist. I know that the innate intelligence knows what it's doing. You just got to get it out of its way. And subluxation is not the only thing that gets in its way.
Yeah. So let's talk about the design of these offices, because I'm really intrigued. I've never been into one. But do you now have a plan that they look similar, they're branded similar, the flow's similar?
Well,
is that all unique, or is that something that you kind of set up when they start out?
No, I can take any office. If you have a room and a front desk, you're good. I mean, people overcomplicate it. You're saying now people come to Green Bay and they see the Disney World of chiropractic. You're saying I got a 75,000 square foot facility with, massive things and, 10 practitioners and blah, 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 and all things like that. But I also have a ton of offices that have 1 doc, 1 staff, and are extremely busy, changing lives like crazy, extremely financially wealthy and stuff. And you just need a couple rooms. Remember, labs are labs, and x-ray is an x-ray, an adjusting table is an adjusting table. And you have a desk to be able to talk to people about their things. People overcomplicate it. They really do.
Yeah. I like the old school knee-to-knee practitioner.
Yep.
Just get in, find out what's going on, tell them how you can help them, and let's get going.
Well, yeah. And if you need to, take an x-ray, take an x-ray. If you need to draw blood, take a draw. You need to give them a stool sample, give them a stool sample. And you do all the things that great. It's really that simple. People overcomplicate it. And that's why a lot of chiropractors now have started to become Wellness Way offices, because they sit there and go, well, jeepers, I'm just missing a couple things and I don't have to redo everything. No, yes. Is the Wellness Way a brand now? And yeah, it's kind of great. I love walking through the airports now because, last month alone, we had over 250 million views. Our name was searched 150 million times in December.
Amen.
And stuff. And just video I put out the other day had 22 million views and stuff. And so it's not like, and remember, but that's from the public. I've never once tried to build a business. That's why I kind of giggle when people are like, well, how'd you do it? Get back to the old chiropractic philosophy of understand how to take people. And as BJ said, get sick people well. And guess what happens? Everything else will fall into place. I didn't have exactly what I had when I first started here 24 years ago. I just have been able to master our craft and teach other doctors of all professions. We have medical doctors, we have nurse practitioners, we have nurses come in saying, our nurse practitioner, who actually says she's a chiropractor by trade, she just went to the wrong schooling, because she's saddened because She can work with the R2Ts, but she says, I'm handicapped because I can't adjust. See, medical field will run towards our profession if we teach them what we do and stuff. Because once again, the chiropractic philosophy is that you understand that chiropractic is the only profession. And this is what separates us. Because people say, it's our technique, it's our this. No, it's not. Do you understand that majority of chiropractic techniques are actually come from medical things, from osteopaths, things like that? They really do. I kind of giggle about that. And you hear the dumb stuff like, well, we adjust, they manipulate. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. Well, we're less specific. No, actually, I've seen actually physical therapists be very specific in their adjustments and stuff. So it's kind of funny. So I say, see, we catch all things, but you know what separates us? There's only one thing that separates all of us from everything, from acupuncture, from massage therapists, from functional medicine, from things. Do you understand that they all they don't realize, and they treat the body like it's a broken down machine? We're the only profession based on our philosophy that recognizes that there's innate intelligence, that the body doesn't make mistakes. And I watch chiropractors, I watch functional medicine people, I watch integrated people, I watch medical people talk about an autoimmune disease is when the body mistakenly attacks itself. It didn't make a mistake. It's very intelligent. And see, that's where we differ in our philosophy so differently. So how you look at a lab, how you look at everything, what you do with them clinically is all based from that major premise. That's why we have that major premise.
So why do you suppose that the majority of chiropractic clinics aren't wellness way?
Well, you got to remember, you have to be very strong to be a wellness way. Do you understand? To be a chiropractor in general, you have to be strong. And that's why most of them fail. That's why 50% of the profession fails. Because do you understand that the majority of the world lives in the medical matrix? And just by being a chiropractor, you're against that. That's why this whole concept of a chiropractic physician or chiropractic medicine stuff, that they're trying to live in a world that actually has it wrong. They're trying to live in the matrix. And in order to be a chiropractor, to truly be a chiropractor, you have to go against everything that the matrix has set up for you. Insurance, acceptance, everything like that. Man, I would probably do it if our healthcare system and our system was so good. I got interviewed on a recent documentary movie through Children's Health Defense and stuff. I had to do. Andrew Wakefield called me up and said, "Hey, can you do this for us?" I said, "Sure." And I've been on Children's Health Defense multiple times. And the person that was interviewing me, I said, "Listen, you can try to attack my education besides being a chiropractor, my other education, things like that. But I said, here's what happens. I just got a simple question for you. How are we doing out there? We have more heart disease, cancer, diabetes, infertility, every condition in the world. Yet we have more natural things, more medical things ever in history. Because if you take medical or natural things, if you take drugs or surgery, or take even natural products and keep the same thinking, you're just going to end up with the same result. Remember, there's more natural products ever in history and still get worse. But see, what hasn't changed? The thinking. So the chiropractors by nature, our schools don't teach them how to think and how to do these things. So when they get out the world, they just put them on the matrix just to go out and do their thing. And it's not going to change. So by nature, it takes a lot to truly be a chiropractor. Do you know what I'm saying? I see that a lot. I see a lot of chiropractors have a backbone. They just don't use it.
So there's a lot that you offered there to me and made me think about a lot of different paths for the profession. And I think a lot of it's self-esteem, self-confidence. I think when you have so much debt also, it does something to clog up your
absolutely it does.
Your mental capacity to treat and to take care of people the right way, because
absolutely.
You're coming from a deficient standpoint too. And you're just it's debt to me is a cloud of fear in a lot of people's lives.
Yep.
And it impedes them from being excellent at their clinical work, because that's always on their leg, man. It's always on their back. Like you said, they had a backbone.
Yep.
But moving forward, what's next for you? I know that you're always doing something awesome. Like, where are you headed to? What are you looking forward to?
Just a great year of millions of people coming and see us as we continue to spread our message. I haven't changed in 24 years. I knew that the message that we had, our message clinically has not changed. Sometimes the model, for example, like if I ran a blood work and CRP as a marker didn't exist when I started practice. So there's other clinical things that may change a little bit that way. But really what happens is this: my message, my model, my everything like that has been clinically sound for 24 years and it continues to grow. I just see expansion even more, not trying to expand. I know it sounds funny because I'm more about clinical excellence, but more doctors keep on coming to us, more students. Our student programs are at an all-time high for the chiropractic students. That's why the schools are reaching out and asking me to speak there, because they're seeing our doctors get out and become a school and become very successful very quickly. Mine is just always simple, as I'm going to always go to reach the public. That's it. I'll always go where the public goes, because, and what I mean by that is this, is if there's a crowd of people that want me to come speak, I'll go there, just because what it does, they can hear a message that I know is going to change their thinking, and then they're going to act differently, and then they're going to see better results in their health. So as I still will never try to go to the schools and get them to change over that. I always use the example. There's a really good grocery store here called Festival Foods. They had no organics and everything, but when they brought an organic section in, they called me up and asked me to come speak there, and I did many times. And how we got the organic section to grow within their store had nothing to do with a business model, had nothing to do with fancy advertising. It just showed the public. I taught the public how good it was for them to eat organically compared to eating processed products, and guess what happened? Their demand grew, and the store changed based on it. That's what I'm just going to continue, God willing, to get the clinical results that no other chiropractor or even medical doctor things are getting, and create the public demand, and the profession will eventually change. It has to, because you're graduating kids at $250,000, $300,000 in debt to be what? Glorified massage therapist, a glorified, pain doctors. It's going to, by nature, die. So I look at it as a great opportunity for chiropractic to make a big shift. And remember, Wayne Gretzky, which don't watch sports, I just don't have time for it. But I'm a fan of Wayne Gretzky because of his one quote that I learned when I was young, because I got to watch him play when I was a kid. What Wayne Gretzky said, I wasn't the smartest, I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the biggest. But he said, a good player will skate where the puck is. A great player will skate where the puck is going. So I've been building clinics for things that when COVID happened, we were prepared. When all these things happened, we were prepared because we're already skating where the puck is going. And most people are trying to survive in a world. I'm going, I'm always predicting what's going to happen and go on. I predicted what's going to happen in COVID. I predicted the clinical outcome. I have videos on it that way. I told you there'd be more autoimmune disease, more cancers ever in history, more people dying from it that way. I explained the physiology behind it, everything like that. And because those things exist on my website, guess what happened? People follow those things. So it's being prepared for it. Chiropractic is not prepared for that. The profession isn't. Look at the schools.
Well, I don't say this a whole lot, Patrick, but you're somebody I would like to work with. And I think that's really cool to hear your standard and how you've built this and what you believe in and how you've instilled that into not only clinic success, but multiple clinic success. And now it's really impressive to hear that you are getting a chance to make a global stance with the amount of traffic that you get on the socials and the amount that you're being asked to speak at these schools and these state associations. I think it's an honor to get to know you and to have you on. Can I ask you a couple more questions?
Absolutely.
So you mentioned that people are like record numbers of sickness and record numbers of heart, lung, like all the big organs, like and obesity to top it. What's making them so sick, man?
The three T's. And it's a job of a chiropractor to figure out what is the most appropriate T to work on, if not all of them at one time. It's simple. The body knows what it's doing. See, chiropractic has the answers. It always has and it always will. We've just become so subluxation based and trauma affected that we're forgetting about the whole aspect of what our philosophy taught us clinically. And that's one thing. That's why, remember, the COVID vaccine's a toxin. Vaccines are toxins. Bad food's a toxin. It just, all these things. Mental stress is detrimental to the human existence that way. Subluxation is detrimental to human existence. So taking that kind of model, it should be very easy for chiropractors to grasp it. It's very hard for the medical field to give up their concept that the body's a broken down machine. Remember, our major premises are so key to what we're doing. It just takes a little shift in chiropractic's procedures, a little shift in their clinical model, and we'd explode as a profession.
Well, I'm going to share a quick Wayne Gretzky quote that I really like is, you miss every shot you don't take. And so do I. And I'm not a hockey guy either, but I am I grew up in a sports loving culture and a sports loving family. So
Yep.
if I can get a good, athletic quote in there, it's pretty awesome.
Yep.
Well, Dr. Patrick Flynn, thank you for being episode 483. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with our audience before we call it a day?
No, I would just like to, speak to whoever listens that way is I wouldn't have what I have today if it wasn't for chiropractic. If someone wouldn't have handed me a green book and someone wouldn't have held me an old Reggie Gold tape when Reggie Gold didn't speak like he did towards the end of his career, when he was talking about how medicine had it wrong, their thinking's wrong, medicine's bad, even though Reggie tried to change his thing when he got older. But the idea and actually read some of the green books that got me to change my thinking as a teenager, I wouldn't have 4 beautiful daughters. I wouldn't never be able to reverse all my wife's conditions. I would never be able to do what I'm doing now today. I wouldn't be able to speak in front of 1,000 people, 5,000 people, wanting to hear the message of what chiropractic really is to change your life. I wouldn't have packed seminars. I wouldn't have the opportunities I have to be on major medical stages. And it's all because of what already exists in these books called the green books, to where they didn't have the technology to prove of what we do today, but they had it right. Man, thank you, BJ. Thank you, Dee Palmer. Thank you, all you guys that actually truly went to jail for what we did. Because as all the schools said that they'd stand up against things that happened, they all caved during COVID. I didn't. And the FBI even showed up at my house, and I told them to leave.
I need to get you on more stages, man. We need to get you linked in with some other great people with great movements out there, because I believe that you can give the message of chiropractic to more people. Thank you so much. Looking forward to connecting with you more and seeing how we can help each other long term. That was episode 483, guys. You're just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Have a great day, Doc.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.